Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. And after 1 week hiatus, I am back doing live streams. I'm going to run through this really quickly for reasons which I'll get to in shortly. But a week ago, I was at Sorry, I'm going way too fast. A week ago, I was at Balticon for the second time. A year ago, Balticon was the first physical convention that I went to in order to sell my books. I was terrified the entire time, and naturally, I made plenty of mistakes. I actually misspelled a word while signing somebody's book, and I tossed that book and gave the person who bought it a clean one without the extra E in continuing because they bought multiple books. So I said, thank you for continuing the journey, and threw an E in there when there shouldn't have been. Thankfully, the authors in the booth next to me saw how new I was, and they helped me survive the weekend. One of them even purchased a copy of the book with a misspelled continuing mistake that I had written in pen, so I couldn't undo it. So I just kind of scratched it off, and he was really nice about it. Well, how did things go this year? What lessons did I learn? What did I improve upon since my first outing as an indie author vendor? So the quick summary. In the end, I was just shy of making back my table. For what's worth, the price of a vendor table was increased this year to be $200. So I made roughly, I think, 160, 170, somewhere around there. But it's not just the books that were sold, it was a whole other thing. And I also was able to maximize my profits more. I'll get into that whole thing as I go through my tips. But I stayed at a friend's house. I got a buddy who lives, I got a couple of friends actually, I have multiple, but I was staying at one of them. He's in, I'll say it, Locust Point. And my tickets to the con were free, which I didn't know the first time doing it. So I wasted easily, $600 there between the hotel room for myself for a weekend, 4 nights, and then tickets for myself and my wife, which I didn't need to do this year. So removing those expenses means that I was able to do better in terms of overall, not sales, but in terms of overall profit from the conference. And again, things that I've learned. I still paid for parking and went out for dinner every night. So was this profit margin people keep talking about? Still, I got my books in the hands of at least a dozen people, and hopefully they'll like what they read. They'll post reviews. And if nothing else, I'm just glad that I was able to meet new people and get them interested in my book. These are the 5 lessons I learned in having returned to Balticon, plus my comment on how to add to my profits by not staying at the hotel if at all possible. But first, I want to thank all of you for being here. Now, I know there is a lot going on tonight, and so if you are here and you want to support James Chaley, he's another Authortuber. He was actually at Balticon, and I'll get into that. But if you want to support him, he is doing his book, The Unlife of Lisa Cooper, is out today. So he's doing his book launch party tonight at this moment. So if you want to duck out of here, watch me on repeat, whatever, go hang out with James Haley. I won't hold it against you. So with that underway, sorry, we got a couple of questions here. What was the best dinner? Ooh, that's a tough one. My wife probably liked the ramen utsaki. I probably have to agree. Yeah, I would go with that one. Final answer. Ramen utsaki, really good. We also went out for another Asian fusion restaurant called Ekiben, which is really good. I liked. The Cheesecake Factory was okay. Their service was very, very slow. They were way overcrowded. And when I told my friends that I was meeting up with after that we went to the Cheesecake Factory, they laughed in my face. Was it awkward being the best author in your area, Balticon? Just Eva, that is lovely and very biased, but I had J.M. Shelley to my right and Lauren and Nicole to my left. So I was in no way the best author in my area. Plus, one of the guys I knew, John, one of the guys who guided me through the first time I was at Balticon, he actually made back his table on the first day. So that is really impressive. Let's see here. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining in. We have a full crowd tonight. We got Richard Holiday. First up, huzzah. Just Eva, thank you for joining in. Happy Monday. And yeah, like you said, or like Richard said, J.M. Chaley's book launch party is going on now. Writing Sisters, Lauren, thank you for joining in. And same, I saw Nicole as I was scrolling down. Yeah. Luna's Mystical Delights, thank you for being here as well and popping in to say hi. All right. So, with that underway, it was a Ben sandwich. Yes, it was a Benwich at Balticon. Oh boy. With that underway, these are my 5 lessons learned and having returned to Balticon. Plus, as I already mentioned this, but I just want to reiterate. So, number 1, make friends. Yeah, this is a big one. Last year, I thoroughly owed Patrick Thomas and John French, whose book is right here. I picked up the sequel to the book I picked up last year. They taught me so many great lessons from the decade plus that they've been going to conferences. They added a vast array of books that they were able to sell, and that's another point that I'll make in just a few minutes. But it was really cool, really appreciative of them. There's a lot of people who are kind of lost with glazed over looks in their eyes, and then there were a couple of people who are fantastic sellers and just fantastic people in general. Also, shout out to Rod Van Blake, who I met the first time I went to Balticon as an attendee, and then based on what he said, like he convinced me to set up and be a vendor the year after that, which was last year. And then this year it was cool to hang out with him again. I also saw him at AwesomeCon, and he does a lot of circuits around here. So he's a wonderful guy. If you ever get a chance, and if you're local to the area, he is awesome. He's got the Neombani Chronicles. It's there's 2 different versions of it, but sorry, not 2 different versions. He's got 2 different series. One is space opera, very war based. He was in the military, so he's got some stuff that he draws in from there. And then the other one is more magic focused, where it's kind of a not fake realm, but it's an imaginary world where magic is the key. Anyways, they were there too. So Patrick, John, and Rod were all there. And it was great to catch up with them and show that I can actually stand on my own 2 feet. I wasn't talking nearly as fast. I wasn't nearly as nervous, wound up. I was kind of in my element for most of the weekend. I think I spoke relatively well as people walked by. And so, fun fact, 3 of the people, like I mentioned, 3 of the people I met up at last year's Balticon, I met at last year's Balticon, I met up with as vendors at AwesomeCon. So it's a very small community. I mentioned Rod Van Blake was there. Jonathan Soul, I met a year ago at Balticon. He wasn't at this year's Balticon, but I did see him at AwesomeCon. And then another guy who was walking around, Alan, I met him at Balticon a year ago. He wasn't at Balticon this year. He wasn't a vendor. He was just wandering around. He might have been helping out. And then I saw him as a vendor at AwesomeCon, and he's got a cool comic strip out, which is a lot of fun. But more than that, I was, like I mentioned, joined by Authortubers in real life, more specifically, Nicole and Lauren of Luna's Mystical Delights and the Rain Sisters, respectively, as well as J.M. Chaley. And so, speaking of J.M. Chaley, again, he has his... There we go. Try that again. He has his own launch party going on now. So again, feel free to duck out of here, say hi, watch it later, do whatever. But he is doing a launch party. So yeah. Oh, Felicia, thank you for joining in. What was your trip decompress? 5 days of intense peopling. Yeah, that was work. My decompression was work, and it was a rough 3 days because we'll go into it. I guess I can go into it. My cousin graduated, so I was off on Tuesday. So I was off on Monday for the holiday. Tuesday, I took a personal day to go see my cousin graduate. And then, oh boy, I didn't really unwind from the 3 days of just nonstop running while I was at work because I had to do makeup stuff. And then I had to do an assessment, do a report, juggling a lot of things up in the air. So there was no decompression. I guess I kind of decompressed this weekend, but also not really. So I'm running on fumes today, and there were some apparent mistakes that I made. So that's always fun. Monday morning, fixing the things I did wrong on Friday. Anyways, I'll hurry up. Like I said, I'm talking a little bit faster, so that way you all can join up in James Chaley's book launch party. Now, we the 4 of us plus significant others somehow managed to all get placed in the same row. I think somebody requested that we all be placed together because they definitely knew that we all knew each other, and I don't know how they did it otherwise. But it was a lot of fun. We were partying up the entire weekend, side by side, for most of the weekend, I guess. So Lauren and Nicole were across the room, and then we ended up switching the second day so they were right next to us, and we were a line of Authortubers. So thank you to all three of you, plus Jam Chaley's wife and my own wife, who made the weekend fly by. There were plenty of hours where no one was walking into our vendor room, and so I did some reading during that time and playing on my phone, which doesn't look the most professional. But most of the time, I was just talking to the people around me, and that was wonderful. I cannot stress this enough. Thank you to everyone who livened up the weekend. Also, in terms of making friends, Richard Holiday has a sequel to Price War, which is coming out at the end of this month, June 29th, I want to say. So, are you terrified of the future in which AI has taken over and a not so subtle Amazon/Google stand-in has taken over the country being the UK? Well, at the start of his second novel, that's the sequel to the first Price War, and due to the actions of that first book, the war has largely been lost. This book has a few people who can see the future problems and decide to fight against the mega corporation that is already kind of won in some ways, but they are still fighting against them. And so here we go. This is the Amazon version, or if you want the UK version, I'm also including that link here. Only a fan of Nightmare Tenant and have, oh, sorry, let me read what Just Eva is saying. I'm only on Nightmare Tenant and I'm falling through. Started on my Kindle. Slow down, y'all. I'm slow. Hey, no worries. Don't worry. Just for you, I will take an extra long time to write book 4 because it's going to take me a long time to write book 4. So you will have plenty of time to read all of our books in between now and then. That being said, the TBR list never shrinks. So if you get to it, cool. If not, no worries at all. Thank you just for being here and hanging out. And yes, it is very cool to hang out with friends in real life. Let's see. Will I be getting a custom tablecloth? I've been thinking about it. I've been playing it. And Jam Chelly really kind of convinced me to go for it. So yeah. July is going to be your indie month. June is for Pride. Yeah, that's awesome. Who is it? A.M. Malloy. I think they also do, well, she does book reviews, but they and she does a lot for Pride as well. So yeah. Look for A.M. Malloy's Authortube channel where she'll go through the book she's reading with a Pride focus. And she also has her own LGBTQ plus book out called South. And I'm going on tangent. So, but yeah, it is a group of kids in college that go through all this kind of drama and get over their trauma together. So it's a lot of fun. It's a romance story. And anyways, number 2, listen. Very hypocritical for me because I always listen to the advice that's given to me, but teach others or learn. So I mentioned Patrick and John, who gave me their own vendoring tips, like the recommendation not stay at the hotel if possible. I showed off some of my strategies to people this year, and I plan to improve for next year. Hopefully, assuming I keep going back and I actually learn from my mistakes. For instance, to answer your question, Richard, Jam Chaley had personalized tablecloth and a backdrop behind him, which had his novel on there, and it looked really, really professional. And those are 2 things I want to look into making. He also had a printed sign-up sheet for his newsletter, which looked a lot better and more professional than the handwritten one that I've used in the past. So when I do go back to my next conference, I want to have a printed out version of sign up for my newsletter and make it look really fancy. Lauren and Nicole, sorry, I don't want to do the, oh boy, that's a tangent. That book with the conch, and it's the kids that end up stuck on an island without any adults, and they combine the twins' names. I don't want to do that. I know Lauren and Nicole are not twins, but I want to separate out their names. So Lauren and Nicole, they brought people to their table with stickers, which everyone can appreciate. And side note, I can give Lauren, Nicole, and Jam Chelly's book pitches by heart for at least the next week because we were sitting next to each other and we absolutely heard everyone's pitches. In fact, I think somebody walked away, and so I kind of rolled right in and was describing all of the details. Now, number 3, variety matters. Backlog is important. The most successful authors were able to tailor the books that we're trying to sell, i.e. selling a kid to a kid's book or an adult book to adults. More than that, the people who sold back their table, I think John was one of the guys I was talking to who did that. I think Rod also might have as well. But they have fantasy, sci-fi, thrillers, drama, etc. And so they're able to just start up a conversation with someone and say, hey, you're looking for any type of book. I have something that will be matched for you. So let's just try and figure out what it is. Now, I only have one type of book to offer. So if you're not into adventures, teenage dramas, less on the drama, but teenagers with superpowers, Into the Void may not necessarily be something you want to read. So that's not really something I can work on because I'm writing the story that I want. And then once I'm done with that, I might expand out. But I know that going in, so I can try and tailor what I'm telling people. I can try and tailor what I'm saying to people based on what I think they might be interested in. But it was the similar thing with J.M. Chaley. So he was out front and saying, hey, my book is about vampires. And people would be like, oh, I don't want to read that. So they would just walk on. That was the end of it. And that being said, I did also have accoutrements, namely the Into the Void series perfumes. So I have bookmarks, magnets, book trailers that was playing on a tablet that was on repeat to draw attention. But the perfumes, smell of fiction, as Adriana described it, that started most of my conversations with people who walk by. And that was a unique and great way to chat with someone who was not necessarily into my books or in my book's usual demographic. So, any authors out there looking to sell your books, think outside the box and show people something more than the book. Or write a whole bunch of books, like 20 to 60 of them, and get a whole bunch of varieties. So that way you can say, hey, you're a kid, here's a kid's book. Hey, here's you like these books? Well, you like these types of books? Well, here's my entire series about that. Here's multiple series about that. And we can write the best books possible. We can have it custom tailored to exactly what the person wants. But number 4, luck is paramount. Name what's that spell? No. Did I do better than anticipated? I would say I did better than I anticipated for the number of people that were present. And I would have liked to have obviously sold more books. And the reason why I came close to making back my table is because I ended up selling the perfumes too. So that helped bridge some of the gaps. Think you picked up any fans of Balticon? I like to think so. Yeah, there was somebody who walked by, and who walked by and speak about luck. He picked up all 3 of my books, which is fascinating. I personally would not. When I see somebody with a whole bunch of books, they're a long series, I'll try the first book, see if I like it. Likely I'll go back, but again, my TBR is out of control, so I'm very cognizant of what I pick up. And going back to the number 4, luck is paramount. I watched charismatic and well-spoken authors try to sell their books. So foot traffic is important, as is general interest in the novel genre. Some books can hit all markets, but a lot of whether we sell our books depends on luck. Unfortunately, in a post-2020 world, all the conferences I've attended are down in terms of volumes of people. And that naturally leads to a reduction in sales, according to the people who have been doing this for a decade or more. In fact, I'm one of the podcasts I listen to, the listeners of the Dead Ropa Society, is brought on, or it's hosted by Terry Mixon, don't remember the other guy, and Veronica Gier. And they used to go to Balticon, but they don't anymore. I don't know if it's too cost prohibitive because they live out in Texas, or 2 of them live out in Texas, or if they just don't have the interest in coming out here or whatever. Either way, they haven't been to Balticon in a while, but I know that they used to. They used to speak really highly of it. And it's a shame that in post 2020, fewer people are going to conferences, but it happens. And the authors who have been going to Balticon for decades filled my head with all kinds of stories with exponentially more people being present in the halls in, say, the 20 teens. I don't know if there's truth to that or if they're remembering the details wrong, but I do think that there were fewer attendees this year than last or the year before. And maybe that's just my imagination because I was overwhelmed at my first Balticon, but that is how it felt to me. So I feel like I might have sold more to fewer people. I think that That is what I'm trying to say. In any case, there's considerable luck involved in getting a person who may be interested in my book to walk by at the right time when they aren't burnt out by the gauntlet of all our other authors, who then this person matches with my pitch for a book and is willing to add another book to their home libraries. Like I said, I'm very particular because the bookshelf behind me is overflowing. I have very limited space in my house. I think I have another bookshelf upstairs and then some books up in the attic. But aside from that, I have to get rid of books. I just donated a couple. So we'll see how it goes. And each of those funneling steps leads to progressively fewer and fewer people. So they need to walk by at the right time. They need to be willing to engage with me. They need to be interested in my book. They need to not have already bought, a bunch of other books at the same time. And before we close out, I'll show you the stuff I picked up, even though technically one of these books isn't, well, whatever. You'll see in just a second. And as I'm trying to go faster and faster, our verbal skills and a solid book pitch only go so far. And my verbal skills degrade very quickly. So in terms of luck, I'm always astounded by people who buy all my books. I mentioned that the person bought 3 of my books, and I told him outright that I am planning a 6-book series, but those will take a couple of years at least to get out to. And he still was willing to pick up all 3 of them, which is really cool. And that's a commitment level that I do not possess. Like I said, I only usually buy the first book, give the series a try, and then come back to it later. And so let's see here. This one right here by Jonathan Soul. He's got The Society. Picked up the first book. I don't think, I'm trying to remember. I think he's working on the second. I don't know when he plans on having it out. So that's something just to keep in mind for me in the future. And lastly, number 5, sales should not be the end all and be all. Now, again, there's a huge caveat to this because my book business is not my primary means of income. It's great if I can break even at a vending at a conference, but if I don't starve essentially. So I watch some people hard sell their books like it was their only source of income, and I never want to be like that. If my book matches with the reader, great. If not, then I don't want them to give me money for the book. And honestly, I do feel a little guilty. There was this one woman who I remembered from the first year, and she bought both my books. And, I stopped by, or she stopped by my table. I said hi. We started chatting up, and I was excitedly telling her that I have my 3rd book out now. And I was asking her if she had gotten a chance to read my 1st and 2nd books. She hadn't, but she still decided to pick up my 3rd book. And I would feel worse for this, except that I'm fairly certain she just buys a whole bunch of books. I know she stopped at multiple tables, picked up their books, and I think she just buys the books and then donates them to a library. I don't know exactly the reasoning behind, or the logic behind her buying so many books. Like I said, I am overflowing with books in my house and I'm out of room for them. So you can see some of these are sideways because there's just out of shelf space. But yeah, I'm really glad that she does make that effort to support indie authors. And I hope that she, if she is running a library or something like that, that she finds a great home for my books. And in terms of quality, anecdotally speaking, the people who I've seen who are the hardest at, they got to sell their books, sell. Well, they have the least in terms of quality. I bought a few books from them because, especially in the first year I did Balticon, I usually feel guilty for everyone in the same. I want to support the other indie authors who are in the same room, even if they are being very pushy about selling their books. And honestly, truth be told, a lot of the books that were hard sold to me, whatever conference it is, not necessarily this past Balticon, but not necessarily, Awesome Con or wherever I was at a library, at a book sign event, the harder the author is trying to sell their book to me, the more likely it is just kind of a meh. And worse, because of how they were selling it to me, I focus on the mistakes, be it grammar or plot holes or misnamed characters. And I do that much more because of that hard sell, and because based on what they said, the bar was set really high in terms of expectations. So know that if you're going to hard sell your book, it might come at a cost, whether that's my overall interest or going into a book with high standards is probably the best, nicest way of pointing it. Those are my 5 tips I learned from my second round of being a vendor at Balticon. And here are my assorted thoughts about the experience. So just a couple of things that I couldn't really fit into a point, but I still want to say out loud. So I think it's a little weird that most of my sales did come from other authors and vendors at the show. I did my own round of picking up books, less so since my TBR is officially out of control. But like I said, I got John French's Monsters Among Us, which is the sequel. It's his Bianca Jones collection, which is very similar to Dresden Files if Dresden Files took place in Baltimore and was associated with a detective instead of just a random wizard. We also have J.M. Chaley's The Wicked Wound of Whitney Hill, which is a short story. And I didn't pick up The Unlife of Lisa Cooper because I already have it on hardback right here. And I got my copy of Vampires of 1863, which, as I mentioned, is out now, and his book launch party is going on as we speak. So I'm going to hurry up through this. We have Ignited Melodies by Emberly Lily Summers, which is a series of poems. Let me think. These are fantasy poems, and this is Shadow's Abyss by L.M. Frost, which is more on the horror side of the poems. Horror side of poems. Going back to my points, I find it really awkward to get people walking by my table who end up handing me their business cards. I know it's hypocritical considering that I'm potentially trying to sell my books to anyone who walks by, but I feel like somebody who acts like a potential buyer and then hands me a business card for services to render doesn't necessarily sit well for me. It can work if you're a voice actor and you're trying to potentially work on an audiobook, or if you're an editor, but I am much more appreciative if you are very upfront about the fact that you are not looking to buy books, but that you're looking to render services, than if you listen to a pitch, seem interested, and then at the end of the conversation, hand me a card. That tends to leave a bad taste in my mouth, like in real life spam. And some of the people were upfront about it, and that's perfectly fine. You know, one of the women who was walking by with her card, she outright said, "Hey, by the way, I'm not looking to buy your book, so don't try and sell it to me." But I did remember her from the year before because she has these really cool business cards that actually has some editing symbols on there. So it's like a misspelled sentence. And so it shows how she would mark it to help me improve if that were my misspelled sentence in one of my books. So that was pretty cool. And I appreciated her honesty as well as the creative method of selling her own editing services. Then there were some other people who, were less so upfront, and definitely some Instagram people who walked by with fanfare, blatantly didn't have interest in the book, and just kind of handed me the promotion. Not a big fan of that. Yeah. Because, like I said, that wasn't Balticon. This was more AwesomeCon, but worse. They would make like rounds, and I think they had somebody like following them around, taking their pictures. So it was a whole ordeal. And yeah, not a big fan of somebody with their entourage talking to me and basically just saying, "Hey, here I am." Cool. Now, yeah. So on to the last and most important question. Will I go back next year? Absolutely. I had a lot of fun with local authors, and I hope James Haley, Lauren, and Nicole will be back next year. It was great to hang out with you all. And if not, we'll just need to find some time to meet in real life again. And I got to see, again, people whose channels I regularly watch, and I got my book into more people's hands than I would have if I stayed at home. So I'm going to do a quick round of questions. So I usually ask for photos. Oh boy, losing all these questions. So Just Eva, I usually ask for photos of my indie books. Anyone take your photo? No. Although the very first Balticon, the very first person who bought one of my books, I did take a picture with them, which is kind of cool. Nobody asked to take their picture with me holding a book. Nothing wrong with that. I don't think I saw anybody really doing that. Yeah. Definitely couldn't afford a house that size by us even 7 years ago when we bought it. Let me see. Oh, 34,000 square feet, and it's husband, child, 4 pets. Oh boy. Wow. Yeah. Just Eva. That sounds like a perfect home for plenty of books. Let me see. I'm scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. There's a lot of conversations, which I'll read later after I'm done here. But I think I've gotten all the questions. Sorry, I'm trying to go through this really quickly so we can all join Jam Chaley's book launch party. If I did miss a question, please just post the comment and I'll get to it in a future episode. This coming week, this Friday, I'll be posting a bonus episode from the Authortube group that I'm a part of, which is called Yum, and it's my best publishing tip. So it'll be a bonus episode. It's coming out. I'll publish it on noon Friday Eastern time, and next Monday I'll be doing an hour early, and that way I'm going to be doing another one of the writing sprints. So I hope to see you Friday and on Monday, and we can be productive together. So I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. Let me know in those comments how you handle selling your books in person. And I'm Running to Write in all my social medias, so follow me there. Also, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description below. And I send out my monthly newsletter on the 3rd of every month, so you just missed it. But if you don't want to miss out on Book 4 news and all the fun going ons I'll have in June, then sign up ASAP. See you next time. Until then, crawl out from behind our computers and show the world we can be authors at in real life personal events. In real life person events. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. I will see you on Friday and Monday, and let's join J.M. Shelley's channel. So really quickly, let me get that link so that way we can all be good to go. And that is the link for J.M. Shelley's channel. So I will see you all next time. Take care.